Hi guys, my name is Nicole Prince and I am the owner and trainer of Pupgrade Dog Training. And I thought I would not only introduce myself a little bit, but also talk to you guys about what the future of dog training looks like. And I'm talking about like real like modern day dog training, not like, this is not your grandma's style of training. So, um I used to train dogs just sort of in what I would call the traditional way of training, which is you do private lessons, you do group classes, and so you have this very limited window of time to reach a dog and to also reach the client. Like, for example, in a group class, let's say it's an 8-week group class, you only have 8 hours of time in which to teach an entire group of people who are all in different stages of their dog knowledge and different stages of learning with their dog. You have to teach these people, how to train their dog and also certain skills that you're trying to get to. And it's also in an environment that is very unforgiving for the students. When we look at group classes, not only is the trainer's attention has to be split between all the students, but you yourself don't always get focused attention, especially if you're in a group class and you have additional issues with your dog. You're not just there for getting some obedience training or something simple done with your dog. Like you're there for maybe behavioral issues. And so if you fall behind, or if there are people who have fallen behind, the group class sort of has to move on its own pace and you get left behind. And at the same time, that focused care and attention is just not paid to you because, I'm sorry, but the trainer can't. Because we have to pay attention to all of the students. We have to make sure that we sort of move everybody cohesively as much as possible, or else the whole thing gets derailed. So it's kind of a fragile system. And like I said, it's just not kind to you guys as students because it doesn't lend itself to being something that can be tailored to your needs, which is very unfortunate because there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all dog training. And one of the other huge disadvantages to traditional dog training is that a lot of the time you go to a facility and you're learning the basics or whatever, and then you're also expected to not only practice these things at home, to practice with your dog, obviously, but you're expected to practice these things out in the world. And for a lot of people, that can be very intimidating, especially if we're talking about switching from the dog doing something in class to them doing it outside of class. And a lot of the times we end up with dogs who only do things in the class setting, or they only do things at home. And that can be very frustrating, and it can also be very discouraging to you guys as students. So let's talk about private lessons. What happens with private lessons? Very similar to group classes, except now we have this hour-long information for a set period of time. Usually you buy a set number of private lessons. And then same thing, you as the owner are expected to remember everything that I have said as a trainer throughout the entire hour. And of course, as a trainer, most of the time we give a ton of information, and most of it is relevant to what's going on with your dog. So if you miss bits and pieces here and there, you don't get the whole picture with your dog. And of course, because humans are fallible, 100% there's going to be details that get missed. It always happens. I see it again and again in private lessons. And sometimes, depending on what details those are, it can actually make a pretty big difference to the results that you're going to get with your dog. At the same time, there's a level of disconnect usually with private lessons that I've seen when it's solely private lessons. And what I mean by this is that you'll have your private lesson, you're excited, you're gung-ho, yeah, I'm gonna do what Nicole said, I'm gonna do all these things. But then when it actually comes to you doing the exercises without me around, it's a different story a little bit. It's like, I I don't really remember what Nicole said. I think I'm doing it correctly. I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then lo and behold, next week rolls around, our next private lesson rolls around, and I show up and I'm like, wow, um, there's been this mistake that's been made for a week now that we have to rectify before we can move on to the next part. And essentially, we might end up losing that week of time. And let me tell you guys just a little bit of the story. This was one of the turning points for me too, when it came time for me to switch some of my programs to how I do them now. I had a client who was an older couple, and they had a young puppy, and they hadn't had a puppy for a very long time, 15 years, give or take. And so they had this young puppy. They were at a different stage in their life. A lot of the things they had forgotten about their other dog when they had raised that dog from a puppy. And of course, time does funny things to our memories. It definitely dampened difficult memories, and it sort of, the nostalgia factor kicks in, and we can view some of our other memories of other dogs in a different light. So the unfortunate thing here was that I was trying my best to help them. I was trying my best to support them. But weekly private lessons weren't enough, despite everything that I tried to do. I used to spend hours at a time. Like if I had 2 or 3 private lessons in a day, I would go home and I'd have probably around 3 or 4 hours of typing up my notes, because while I was doing private lessons, I'd be taking notes for the client, and then I would be fleshing out those notes later for them, so they'd have this whole long write-up of what we had practiced. And so for this particular couple, it just didn't work. It did not matter how detailed my notes were. It did not matter. Like we literally, at week 3, we finally had a breakthrough where we were able to move past the week 1 subject material. And unfortunately, when you have a puppy who's now 3 weeks older and we're dealing with new problem behaviors and new things that have to be learned and new things that have to be countered and fixed, it was just a very losing battle for this pair of people. And I think about them a lot. Definitely, like I said, this was the turning point for me where I realized, this is not how I want to do things anymore, and this is not effective, and something else has to be done. And I spent a lot of time sort of questioning, is it me? Is it this? Is it that? And while neither of us really made a big mistake, it was just that there's a better way to teach, and there's a better way to get you guys the information in a way that you can access on your own, and in a way that is much kinder to you as a learner and as a student. So let's talk a little bit about that. So what I started doing and what I changed my entire business around, my entire business model. And in fact, there are still changes that happen now and again too, as I streamline stuff for you guys. But overall, this change has changed so much for many of my clients. And some of my past clients actually got grandfathered into here. I had this great client who they had been working with their reactive dog with me for quite a while. And I know that there was holes in the knowledge that were just, happening because we were switching from a private lesson style to a different learning style. And they finally, but we reached the end of our time together, and now they have this really super solid foundation of knowledge on their dog that they were growing before, but they were stymied and limited by what can really be taught in private lessons. It's a very, very small amount of information, and it can be very overwhelming too, simply because of how private lessons are structured. So let's talk about what I do differently now. So now in all of my programs, there's an online component. So instead of me having to go to every person and spending 2 or 3 private lessons teaching you guys the basics and trying to teach you all these very rudimentary things, that's done already for you guys. And it's done in a way where that information can get out to you guys in a quick and efficient fashion, and where you can start problem solving on your own to apply some of these things to your life. And so now when you have your first lesson with me, you're already starting with this baseline foundation level of knowledge that we're building on, and so we can make much better progress. On top of this, group classes have not gone away, but they're included. And since I have the benefit of not being chained down to a facility with you guys, we get to actually practice out in the world just like it's real life. And that can make all the difference, not only in your guys' confidence and helping you guys succeed, but in also getting progress with the dogs. Because at the end of the day, you didn't get a dog and you didn't go to a trainer just to have the dog be able to do something in your house and that's it. Or just to be able to, yeah, he can do all these exercises when he's in the facility. He can do this when we're in class. But as soon as we're not in class, I don't have control. I don't have impulse control on my dog. He still pulls me everywhere, except in this one area. Like, that's not why you went to training, and that's not why you hired a trainer. So it's those types of things where having these different format and being able to give you guys the foundation to work off of, it's so powerful. And having hybrid style learning is what makes that possible. So definitely I pride myself in being able to support you guys through your journeys with your dogs with this style of learning. I have seen so many of my students just become total rock stars and just badasses with their dogs because of this. It's so empowering to you guys. At the same time, it cuts out a lot of the middleman of like, oh, I don't really want to, I just had my private lesson. Maybe I don't want to email Nicole, or maybe I don't want to do this, and I'll just wait until the next one. Like, that gets totally eliminated, especially since the support that I'm giving is so much, I'm not going to say it's 24/7, but it's definitely much more focused support for you guys. And as students, that's what you need. How wouldn't it make a difference to you if you knew that at any point in time, if you were struggling with a problem with your dog, you could just send me a quick message or a quick question, and then I'd be able to answer you that day, or like in most cases, in minutes. Wouldn't that make a difference to you? Like, wouldn't that support you more, instead of, oh, I had this problem and I also had this problem and I also had this problem, so I'm just gonna wait until our group class or wait until our private lesson, and then hope that not only do I remember all these things to bring up, but hope that we have enough time to address them and to also move on with whatever the lesson is. So I'm never going back to doing like packages of just group class stuff or things like that, simply because it doesn't work as effectively. So why would you go back to a way that doesn't work well? So that's me in a nutshell, and how I do things differently, and how I'm out here. My biggest focus is getting the most support for you guys, so that you can make that real progress with your dog, and so that I can meet you halfway, wherever that is in your lifestyle with your dog, in your journey that you're going on with them. So I just wanted to give you guys some information on how I do things, and how things are changing, and how even other dog trainers, prick up your ears, because the world is changing out there, and there are better ways to teach people. That is not private lessons, that is not group classes. And also, you guys as clients, you should be, as dog owners, you should be looking for services that are going to give you the most support, and that are actually going to teach you how to do something, why you're doing it, and how to apply that to your dog and your future dogs. And if a class or a program doesn't give you that knowledge, then you're kind of wasting your time. So that's where I differentiate myself, and that's how I'm doing stuff for my people, because the results are way more different than it used to be with traditional dog training. So I'm proud to be able to give you guys that service, and I'm really excited. I'm always excited about this. So if you guys have questions, if you want to get in touch, if that sounds like something that's right up your alley, like you need help and you need focused help and you you want to get to the success with your dog, let me know. Send me a message, give me a call. I'm not hard to reach, and I always have a listening ear for whoever wants to chat me up.